There's a feeling most men know but rarely talk about. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's that quiet, unsettling sensation in your chest that something has shifted. That the relationship you thought you understood has slowly started feeling like a stranger wearing a familiar face. You can't point to one specific moment. You can't name one clear reason. But something deep inside you keeps whispering that things aren't the same anymore. That feeling isn't weakness. That feeling isn't paranoia. That feeling is your mind picking up on something your eyes haven't fully registered yet. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what that something is. Because here's what most men are never taught: betrayal, emotional distance, and the slow drift of a woman's attention don't happen overnight. They don't arrive like a storm with thunder and lightning. They arrive like a slow change of season, gradual, quiet. And by the time most men feel the cold, the leaves have already been falling for months. The human brain is extraordinary at sending signals. Every shift in tone, every change in body language, every slight drop in warmth, your subconscious registers all of it before your conscious mind catches up. That gut feeling you've been dismissing, that's not anxiety, that's data. So let's talk about the 4 psychological patterns that almost always appear when a woman's emotional focus begins shifting away from a relationship. Not to make you suspicious of every woman you meet. Don't miss the insights that could transform your life. If you found this valuable, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful content. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your journey to growth, wisdom, and success starts today. Take action now, not to turn you into someone who's constantly watching and analyzing, but to give you something far more valuable: clarity. Because a man who sees clearly never gets blindsided. The first sign is the one most men feel but never fully understand. It starts with energy, not a dramatic argument, not a sudden coldness, just a slow, quiet dimming, like someone turning down the volume on a song you used to love. She still talks to you, she still shows up, she still laughs at the right moments, but something underneath has changed. The warmth that used to come naturally now feels like it has to be summoned. The curiosity she used to have about your day, your thoughts, your world, it starts feeling muted, almost mechanical. Think about the early days of your relationship. She wanted to know everything: what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what made you laugh. That kind of attention is one of the most powerful signals of genuine attraction. And when it begins to fade, most men don't recognize it for what it is. Instead, they try harder. They text more. They plan more. They give more. They think the solution is volume: more effort, more affection, more presence. But psychology tells us something different. Emotional energy isn't fixed. It moves. It flows toward whatever is receiving the most attention, investment, and excitement. And when that energy begins quietly redirecting itself towards something or someone new, the existing connection doesn't get a sudden shutdown. It gets a slow withdrawal. Her laughter becomes slightly less genuine. Her affection becomes slightly less spontaneous. Her interest becomes slightly less curious. None of these things alone would raise an alarm. But together, over time, they paint a picture that most men don't want to see. Because when you love someone, the brain protects itself by explaining things away. She's tired, she's stressed, she's going through something at work, she just needs space. And maybe that's true. But there's a difference between temporary distance caused by external pressure and a fundamental shift in where someone's emotional energy is quietly being invested. The second pattern follows almost immediately, and it's one of the most misunderstood signals in relationship psychology. Her world becomes more private. Now, privacy is healthy. Every person deserves space, personal boundaries, and time that belongs only to them. That's not what this is about. This is about a specific kind of privacy, the kind that appears suddenly, without a clear reason, and seems designed to create separation rather than simply maintain personal space. It starts with small things. Her phone, which used to sit openly on the table, now faces down. Messages get cleared faster than they used to. When you ask a simple question, who she was texting, where she's going, who she was talking to. The answers feel vague, rushed, or slightly irritated, like the question itself was an intrusion. Here's what's happening psychologically. When someone begins forming a new emotional connection, whether it's physical or purely emotional, the mind instinctively builds a wall between that new connection and the existing relationship. Not always consciously, not always deliberately, but the brain understands that these two worlds cannot be allowed to intersect, so it begins creating invisible boundaries. Psychologists call this emotional compartmentalization. It's the mind's way of keeping two conflicting realities separate so they don't collide. The existing relationship lives in one compartment. The new emotional investment lives in another. And the wall between those two compartments is what starts showing up as secrecy in everyday behavior. This is the stage where most men begin doubting themselves. They notice something feels off, but they're afraid of seeming controlling or insecure, so they talk themselves out of their own instincts. They convince themselves they're overthinking, they swallow the discomfort and carry on. But your instincts aren't overthinking, they're pattern recognition. Your brain has been collecting tiny data points, changes in tone, shifts in body language, micro-expressions, behavioral inconsistencies, and it's trying to show you something you don't want to see yet. Secrecy in this context isn't always about hiding a specific act. Sometimes it's simply about protecting a new emotional world that feels exciting, validating, and separate from the weight of an existing relationship. The third pattern is the one that hurts men the most because it feels deeply personal. She becomes critical, not just occasionally, not in the healthy, honest way that helps relationships grow, but in a way that feels relentless, disconnected, and aimed at flaws that never seemed to matter before. Suddenly, things you've done for years without comment become sources of irritation. Your habits, your sense of humor, the way you communicate, things she once accepted or even loved start attracting sharp, repetitive criticism. You find yourself doing what most men do in this situation. You start analyzing your own behavior. You try to fix the things she's pointing out. You become more careful, more accommodating, constantly wondering what you did wrong and how you can win back the closeness you've lost. But here's the psychological reality behind what's happening. The human brain cannot comfortably hold two conflicting realities at the same time. On one side is loyalty to you, a real relationship with history, shared memories, and genuine connection. On the other side is the pull of something new, someone or something that feels exciting, uncomplicated, and charged with the kind of energy that new attention always carries. Holding both of these realities simultaneously creates enormous internal tension. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. And the brain's instinctive solution to that tension is to resolve it, to make one side of the conflict feel less valuable so that the guilt of investing emotionally elsewhere feels more justified. So it begins amplifying flaws. It magnifies imperfections. It turns small irritations into significant problems. And gradually, the internal narrative shifts from this relationship is something worth protecting to something here isn't working anymore. The criticism isn't really about your habits. It's about the brain building a psychological case, a justification for a shift in emotional investment that's already quietly happening. This is one of the most painful signs to experience because it makes you feel like the problem. Like if you could just fix yourself enough, everything would go back to normal. But chasing approval in this situation almost never restores the connection because the distance isn't coming from what you're doing wrong. It's coming from where her emotional attention is quietly going. The fourth and final pattern is the quietest one, and in many ways, the most revealing. Her priorities shift. Time is the most honest signal a human being can send. You can say all the right things, you can make all the right promises, but how someone actually spends their time, where their attention naturally goes, and what they treat as non-negotiable, that tells you everything about what truly matters to them. She starts seeming busier than usual. Plans get canceled more often. When you're together, she's physically present, but mentally somewhere else. distracted, checking her phone, giving responses that feel short and automatic rather than engaged and genuine. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel like work. The connection that used to be the easiest thing in your world now requires effort just to maintain. This isn't just about a busy schedule. Busy people still make time for what they love. This is about presence and the quiet disappearance of it. The relationship starts feeling less like a priority and more like an obligation. Not because she's a bad person, but because the brain is wired to move toward what feels exciting, validating, and emotionally alive. And when a new source of that energy appears, the existing relationship gradually starts feeling like something to manage rather than something to cherish. The anxiety this creates in a man is profound and deeply disorienting. You can feel the distance, but you can't explain it. You want to close the gap, but every attempt seems to push things further. That quiet anxiety is your mind recognizing a pattern that your heart isn't ready to accept yet. Here's what I need every man listening to truly understand before we close. Any one of these 4 signs, emotional distance, increased secrecy, unusual criticism, shifting priorities, could have an innocent explanation on its own. Stress is real. Life gets complicated. People go through phases. Don't become someone who turns every quiet moment into evidence of betrayal. But when multiple patterns appear together, when the distance and the secrecy and the criticism and the absence of presence all show up at once and they persist over time, psychology is clear about what that combination typically signals. Something beneath the surface has shifted, and pretending otherwise doesn't protect you. It just delays clarity. This is the most important thing I can leave you with. Your goal isn't to become paranoid. Your goal isn't to become controlling or suspicious or consumed by doubt. Your goal is awareness, because awareness is the only thing that gives you real power in any relationship. Men who understand human behavior don't live in fear. They don't chase reassurance. They don't ignore their instincts and hope for the best. They observe clearly, they communicate honestly, and above all, they protect their own self-respect. Because the most dangerous place a man can ever stand is in comfortable denial, where the signs are visible, the instincts are speaking, and the mind is choosing not to listen. The strongest version of you isn't the one who loves so hard he ignores the truth. The strongest version of you is the one who loves with his eyes open, who understands that clarity isn't a threat to a relationship, it's the foundation of a real one. Relationships aren't built on luck, they're built on awareness. And when you operate from understanding rather than hope, from observation rather than denial, from self-respect rather than fear, you stop being someone who gets blindsided. You become someone who sees, and that changes everything.